Welcome to the second part of my two-part series on how you can install Exchange 2013 Release Preview onto Windows Server 2008 R2. In the previous part, obviously which was part 1, I took you through how you can install all of the operating system prerequisites, which were linked to my telnetport25.com article, which provided you with a script to install the various roles and features on your server. I also went through the required prerequisite software that you will need present on the server to ensure for a successful Exchange 2013 RP install. In order to complete the steps that are here in part 2, which is of course installing 2013, you should have downloaded 2013 from the Microsoft website. A link to the download will appear on the right hand side over here. And double clicked on that binary file, which will extract the relevant setup data to a location on your server. Once extracted, you will see a file set layout that looks very similar to the following, where within this folder structure you will need to locate setup, which is in my example down the bottom. Double clicking on setup will initialize the full setup for Exchange 2013 preview. You'll be asked whether you would like to check for updates or not check for updates. For the purposes of this video overview, I will say don't check, and then click on next, and then Exchange Setup will go ahead and copy its relevant files to a temporary location to then begin the main Bootstrap setup that will then install the relevant roles on your server. One thing that I think is important to point out here is that I've already gone through the relevant Active Directory preparation for Exchange 2013. You have a couple of options where in order to do this you can use setup with a number of command line parameters to do the forest prep and the domain prep, or you can just run the GUI on an Exchange server, your first Exchange 2013 server within your forest domain, and it will actually do that for you within the GUI. It's swings and roundabouts. Obviously, the command line setup is useful if you have a multiple forest multiple domain setup. As my lab is a single forest, single domain with 3 servers in it at the moment, I just have basically executed and allowed the prerequisite schema updates to occur from within the GUI. When setup is finished copying its files, it will begin the process of preparing the installation for the next step, which is where you get the opportunity to select your roles and various other facets of your Exchange 2013 installation. When setup is ready, you will get this rather nice little message here saying we're ready. Click next to the begin. So down to next, and you'll be basically given a little bit of a introduction to what you're going to be doing over the next probably half hour to 45 minutes on your Exchange server. So click next. And you will be presented with the 2013 license agreement. Check I accept the terms of the agreement, and then click next again. You'll be asked whether you would like to submit any errors to Microsoft. I would say yes, because obviously if you're setting up the preview and anything goes wrong, it's always useful to give Microsoft as much possible feedback about any errors in the code logic, so they can naturally deliver a quality product at the end. So I've basically checked that radio box there. Click next, and Exchange will go through and basically ensure that you've got all of the prerequisites there. If you followed part 1 of my series, you should be good to go. It'll then move on to ask you which roles you'd like to install on your Exchange server. In this example, I want both mailbox and client access role. So I've selected those two, and I now click next. and the setup wizard will then ask me where I would like to install all the relevant binaries. In my installation I'm just going to leave it at the default path. Click next. Obviously within 2013 there is enhanced malware functionality. You get the opportunity here to either enable it by default right from the get-go or disable it. Personally, I would leave it as enabled, so then click on next. You will then be presented with a familiar question for those of you that have done a lot of Exchange 2010 installs, of whether the client access server role is internet facing or not. As this is in a lab and it's not internet facing, I'm going to leave these at the default. Of course you can always go back at a later point and reconfigure these values from within the relevant Exchange management consoles, either via PowerShell or via the Exchange Administrative Center. So I'm going to click next, and basically 2013 setup will go away and configure some initial prerequisites before it then gets into the, for want of a better term, meat and potatoes of installing the full product on your chosen server. You'll see in my prereq analysis I have a warning here because I don't have a default SMTP send connector at the moment. It's not a huge problem for us. It's something that I can go back later on and correct after Exchange setup has completed. So, reviewing all of this, I'm now ready, and we are now ready to click install. And Exchange setup will now begin. When setup is completed, you will naturally see that the progress bar is hit 100% and the completed button is enabled at the bottom of the interface. Clicking on that will naturally finish off Exchange 2013 setup, and you're ready to begin the management of your fresh Exchange 2013 server. So this concludes my two-part series on the installation. In part 2 of the article which this video is associated with, I will take you into how you can access the Exchange Administrative Center and basically show off some of the really cool new features of Exchange 2013. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.